I just feel like lately I have been definitely trying to be, I don't even like the phrase be perfect because that's not subconsciously. I wasn't like, oh, this has to be perfect. I think I was just not in flow of who I am and what I teach people because of like life circumstances. And so I was just kind of phoning it in, and that will get you some results, and it has. But someone like me who's not just here to be average, right? I believe that I'm put on this earth to have a big impact. That gets frustrating because you're not fulfilled. You're not like there's not. I'm also an athlete. Like I played sports my whole life, so then I'm just not feeling like everything's running on all four cylinders. So it felt good. That last episode felt good.
So we're going to start right there because, I mean, that's a total mic drop moment. Welcome to the podcast, Emmy. Welcome to the Cure for Pod Fade. I am so excited you found your way here because that means you know how powerful podcasting can be. You are ready to build a legacy with your unique story, your message, and your offer, but you're getting a little overwhelmed. You're feeling frustrated, you're feeling stuck. You just don't know how to grow your show, find a new audience, and make some money. Podcasting can be the ticket to the life of your dreams, and it doesn't have to be as hard as you think. We're talking about all the ingredients it takes to be a successful, profitable podcaster without that icky overwhelm, because you are too magical to join the 85% plus club that pod fades away. I'm your host, Jen Dragonette, so let's make podcasting easy peasy lemon squeezy. So if you're feeling stuck in perfectionism, maybe you haven't found that story that connects, or your business has just flatlined, you have got to get your booty over to Amazon and pick up your pre-sale copy of Your Story is Someone's Life Raft. This is my new book, and we've already reached number 13 on the Amazon bestsellers list. This book is going to help you find those stories that connect while having fun, because healing can be fun and beneficial for your business. Of course, the link for it will be down in the show notes. Now let's get on with the episode.
Hey, what's going on? I'm so happy to be here with you in this capacity. Jen is my podcast editor, which is so cool because normally we don't get to talk like this. And so I think it's going to be a really special time together. So thanks for having me.
You're welcome. I'm really excited because when I get to talk and when my clients get to share, and people that have gone through different stages in their life and business, I get to see the back end, and I see you're someone who could have easily been like, peace out. I'm done with podcasting. I don't want to do this anymore. Yet you stuck it out. So this conversation is going to be juicy.
It's always juicy. Hey, Emmy. It's always a party too. We're always having fun. You're gonna get what you came to listen for. And it's gonna be just, I think Jen and I are gonna have a great time, but you as well as listening, like you're in for a treat.
Yeah, it's always a treat, right? So
Love it.
I want to start with this. We met, I think it was probably like a year and a half ago or so, and you started your podcast, and it was like gung ho out the gate. But life happened, and there was some times that you had to like reevaluate. So I want to talk about that reevaluation period and how important it is, because I think so many people are like just pushing ourselves to burnout for some reason or another. And I know this is one of your specialties, to like be like, let's slow, let's regroup.
Yeah, it's so interesting because I don't know if I would necessarily categorize myself as that, because I am a pretty high producer. I'm a high achiever. I'm an Enneagram 3. I am a recovering perfectionist. I can get a lot done in a little amount of time. And so even when I'm sick, like when I'm sick, my like sick is people like normal speed with their like just demeanor. But I think I've gotten more in flow with it as the seasons have come and go throughout life. And I think for the last 3 years, honestly, we thought 2020 was bad. Well, 2021 got crazier, and 2022, it just kept going. And I don't know about you, I don't really watch news, but I know what's going on in 2023, and it is nuts. It's bananas. It's bonkers. And so I think as I have been, there's a couple of things, Jen, that helped me do that. Right. And I think my biggest one is my faith, right? Because at the end of the day, as much as I love podcasting, as much as I love helping my clients, I am a personal branding marketing specialist. I'm also an expert in Instagram. So I put those two together. I help online business owners know how to build their brand story and do that in a way on Instagram so that they can increase their visibility and increase their bank account. Okay. That's what I do, but that's not actually my calling. That's not why God put me on earth. Have you ever heard the phrase like, I'm not here just to go to work, pay bills, go to sleep and get up and do it again? And so that's my number one kind of baseline of what I decide any decision through. And there have been hard times the last 3 years, right? I got married. There have been great times. I started a couple of businesses, successful businesses that are still going on. I engaged and married. I had a miscarriage shortly after that. I, through that, then had some really kind of health issues for the next couple of years that were affecting everything because your health, yeah, and Jen and I talk about this all the time. Your health, if that is out of whack, your business is going to be out of whack. If your health is out of alignment, your podcast is going to be out of alignment because your podcast is not just this vacuum. You're not living in a vacuum. It comes from who you are. You may be niched, but you're the host of the show. And so you need to have a personal brand. And when your person is whacked out for whatever reason, and especially in your health, it's going to show. And so my faith in God and that relationship and really focusing on my health, even through the seasons of challenges, have been what have helped me along with you. Okay. I really, and I mean this, she did not pay me to say this. I did not get a discount on my next month's rate, but you provide a space for it to be more than a transaction with your clients. Even last week, I sent Jen a message. We were strategizing on a quarterly strategy call. And afterwards I just got off and I said, thank you for keeping space for me because today's been a really hard day. And she sent me a long voice memo. Right. And I'm sure it was great. I still haven't listened to it. But I imagine it was very supportive, very encouraging. I have it saved to listen to when I need it. I think that's really what I was actually doing. I'm going to stop talking, but I just wanted to also say you have to have people in your corner. That's the third thing. And Jen is someone who's in my corner to help my message get into the world to more people. And it's a beautiful thing when you can have all three of those things working on all cylinders because your message does need to be heard.
100%. And I think that the delivery of the message, like one of the things that you like sprinkled in there and then quickly like skidded right over was like the message and the story. I think that so many podcasters, and I listen to a lot of podcasts. Come on, guys, I spend a lot of time listening to podcasts, whether I want to or not. But we forget that we're a story, we're a person. We become our strategies. I've fallen short of this. I'm like, hey, strategy. No, like you just said, it's that holding the space, and that's why I think for me, podcasting is therapeutic. I
Mhm.
truly think that it's a healing modality, and when you can find people that can hold space for you, whether that's a listener, somebody you're working with, that's where the magic is that story that you can share in a safe way.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. And I would agree with you. I do believe it's healing. I think there are a lot of times I'm a pretty outgoing person. I'm pretty loud. I would not say obnoxious. I think I'm not obnoxious, but I'm outgoing and I like to have a good time. I like to have, a party atmosphere and I'm always smiling and I'll talk to anyone who has 2 ears and I'll make a friend wherever I travel and go. But sometimes those are the people, right, that are having the hardest time with the biggest smile, right? They're having the hardest time. And so I think with podcasting, it's even allowed someone like me who maybe you look at and be like, oh, her life is great. She's traveling. She's got successful businesses, a great family. She just had a baby, lots of friends. Well, there are a lot of times where I feel lonely. And so I can turn on a mic. I even joke with Jen. I even bought, and I have it right here, Jen, my portable from Amazon, these portable mics. I was like, Jen, I need something I can record on the go because a lot of my good stuff is, I feel like, just divinely downloaded and it's off the cuff. I still haven't figured out how to use these because it's a different like USB or whatever charger. But when you can just turn on your mic and talk and it's flowing from who you are, there's a purpose. You don't have to have an outline. You don't have to, I don't have anything scripted for my shows. It's because it flows from who I am, knowing who my listener is, knowing who my community is, knowing who my target market is, knowing who my ideal client is, and my brand values, all those things. But if it starts first and foremost with me, my story is what's going to be able to help, like you said, the modality carry out whatever training you're wanting to do or whatever teaching or whatever messaging. I always like to say facts tell, stories sell. And you are the best story and no one can take your story away. No one can do that. You own that and there are people that need to hear your story.
Yes, 100%. I am all for stories. And I think that that is one of the things that is so powerful. And your story can be something like super simple. It's been like two sentences, can be a whole story that can save a life. And I was talking to somebody on this podcast and they're like, yeah, I had a person reach out to me that was going to end their life.
Mm,
They listened to my episode. It saved their life. They wrote me an email. And it's like, if there's nothing else that can cure, like think about how much of an impact your story can make. Yeah, you're talking about business and health and fitness, but there's so much more that's like the human connection. And I think that's
absolutely.
one of the things you're great at helping people with is like, let's tease out those stories.
Wow. That's a beautiful story that you just shared. So do you see what Jen just did? She basically in real time modeled for you what you can do in your own business, in your own brand, with your own podcast. And that's what makes her really good at what she does. And also, it's a strength of mine. And that's why we tell stories. Again, it's not just to have them stick, which is a really good book that I like to recommend called Stories That Stick. Speaking of books, I mean,
Yes, mine is coming out. Your story is someone's life raft is coming out end of July.
okay, I wasn't sure. I didn't want to be, I didn't want, I didn't want to be like breaking news here. Okay. But yes, stories that stick, and then you want Jen's book, story about stories, and I don't know what I was gonna say. I think I just had mom brain.
Hey, and that's part of life, right? And that's, that's another thing that I want to like share is that as we've been working together, as things have been changing in your health, having a child, like having all of these things come up, there's something special about you because most of my clients are like, hey, when I have mom brain, when something's going on, I want you to cut that all out. That's not real life. And I think that's one of the beautiful things that you share with your audience is that ability to be vulnerable. Like it can be messy. Do we want terrible audio with like screeching sounds in our ear? No, 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 no. That's not what we're talking about here. But life it happens. We can't be polished.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things, because I do spend a lot of time on social media because that is my job. And at some level, I go in different seasons of this, of really enjoying social media and not. I'm a creative. And so things like Instagram stories, which by the way, there is no coincidence why Instagram names them stories. That's where I love to hang out because I also am a fan of story. Personal branding is your story. I like to say also like home is where your story begins. We don't have anything without our story. And again, like I said, no one can take that away. But I've always wanted to maintain how I am in person. If you saw me online, you're following me, you're having fun, you're watching, I call it the Emmy show because it's a documentation. It's like a Netflix reality show from morning to night of what it's like to live my life and hang out with me in real life. Once you do in real life, I want it to be the exact same. So that's the good, that's the bad. That's it's not my TED talk, it's not my dear diary. I have a counselor and I like I said I have a relationship with God and I talk to him about that. But absolutely I'm going to share those things because it gives people permission to know that they can do it too. It doesn't have to be perfect. Remember I said I'm a recovering perfectionist. So I always strive no matter what medium I'm interacting with, whether it's social media or podcasting, I want it to be like you feel like you're my best friend. you feel like you and I are hanging out, we're together in person, and we're just having a conversation about whatever. And the conversation could be about business, it could be about marketing, it could be about Instagram, it could be about health, it could be about your hormones, it could be about miscarriage, it could be about faith, religion, the church, what you God, whatever. That's why my podcast is called the Hey Hey Emmy Show podcast, all things Proverbs 31 to 2 pod, because it's basically my take on everything from A to Z. Right. And but it plays on. I actually love my name. I think sometimes, and Jen, you're the expert, so you can tell me. I think sometimes it does shoot me in the foot in regards to some of like niching, because it's not like, I even asked my coach, I was like, if you looked at my name on my podcast, what would you think it meant? Like, what would you think you were going to listen to? And she said, probably like a faith based or like something about God or something like that. And she's not even really versed in the Bible, but Proverbs is a book in the Bible. I was like, well, that's true. I do want, that is a big thing that I want to talk about, but I also love business. And I started my podcast because I didn't want to just be niched down and just be podcast or Instagramming about tips and tricks and hacks, which I do teach about. But at the end of the day, I always want whoever's listening to feel that authenticity, as much as I don't love that word, no matter what we're talking about, whether it's business or personal or like health and things like that. Yeah. I mean, Jen and I were just talking about too, like my son, he has a feeding tube. We spent 3 weeks in the NICU right after he was born, and we got sent home with oxygen support and feeding support. And so he has an NG tube that goes in his nose to get his nutrition, to get his feeding every 3 hours. And my office is in the back of our house, and he was feeding in the front. And I heard it beeping, which means it was done. I was like, and I was podcasting at the time. I was trying to get it in because I was like, okay, I have X amount of time. I know when it's going to be done. Well, I didn't, because I like to talk, if you can't tell. And it started beeping. And I called the elephant out in the room. Right. Or like one time my husband was cooking and he was probably burning the food. And I was like, I heard that. And so I said, oh man, I don't know what's for dinner, but I hope it's not black. And because right now the fire alarm's going off. Right. So bringing in that realness into your audience, into your listeners, really does help them feel like they know you better, helps them feel like they're a part of your journey in your life. And if I'm going to be salesy on it and use sales term, people buy, and even though they're not paying for your podcast, they're buying you. Okay. People buy you before they buy any product, that even if you don't have promotions or sponsorships or monetize your podcast, they're buying people. They buy from people they know, like, and trust. And what I just described is how you do that,
Yeah.
and do it in a way that feels good to you, right? At the end of the day, this is supposed to be fun. If you ain't having fun, you ain't doing it right. That's one of my favorite sayings. If you ain't having fun, you ain't doing it right. And you absolutely have permission to be yourself. You absolutely have permission to do this in a way that feels good to you. You have permission, absolutely, to have fun and bring other people in on the journey. And your story is going to be the key, or in Jen's case, the raft, right? You're going
The
to say it
life
more
raft.
eloquently, the life raft, to unlock something in their story.
Yeah. And I think you just bring up such like a great point. It's like we need to sometimes set aside all the things that we've learned and like lean into like this is life. Because I mean, going into business is like by yourself, like being an entrepreneur, being a podcaster, any of these things, it's a lot of work. Google University, or the amount of coaches you've had, or, all the different directions, it can get cluttered up there. And we think we have to be perfect. We think we have to do this. But again, that's one of the reasons why I love like your show and how you present yourself, because it's like, no, my husband burned something. There was a beep from the feeder. Like, leave it there.
Yes.
Let that be part of
I
your story.
yes, I do not like scripted shows personally. I do not like, if I say I want it, like, I don't want a bunch of edits. I want it to be real. I mean, Joe Rogan, hello. He doesn't probably, I mean, there's probably some, but like, you feel like you're sitting at that table with him and his guests, whatever, having a debate about some hot topic conversation. I'm not comparing myself to Joe Rogan. No one is Joe Rogan. And as much as I could talk probably for that long, no one probably wants to hear me talk for that long. I mean, I'm good in bits and pieces. And when I am, I'm real good. But yeah, leaving it. Like that's so much more enjoyable to me. And and I think our limiting belief or our ego says, oh, people aren't going to be able to listen to it as well. They're not going to be able to digest it as well. There are cases, and that's why you have an editor, and that's why like you have someone. Jen, I have asked her, be like, hey, is this deterring from someone digesting the message? And she'll tell me yes or no. And if it is, great, then we either edit it out or re-record. I can count on one hand how many times I've had to re-record, and I can count on actually 0 fingers because we've had to do it 0 times in 120 episodes in approximately a year.
Yeah. And I think this is one of the parts, like, I kind of want to go more into this, is just like owning your story, your life, your imperfections is probably part of the reason why your show didn't fade out. When you had all those things come up, is that yes, your show is a broad topic. Is it harder to niche to like grow a show that has a broad topic? 100%. It really is. But you always found a way to be like, okay, look, health and wellness, back to business success. This story back to like, it all ties together when you think about it, is that we put ourselves in these boxes because we forget that your analogy is the octopus, that it's all attached to the same head. Like, you may have all these little things floating around, but there's always a way to tie it back to keep you interested and motivated and wanting to show up authentically. I know that's not your
Yeah.
favorite word, but I'm going to use it anyways.
I mean, it's easy for people to understand, right? That's why I still use it, even though I don't love it. It's just an overused word. I don't know if you would agree with that, but I mean, at the end of the day, my show is a business show. And some episodes I do better at tying things back to that than others. But if I was to nitpick every episode, if I was to strive for that perfection every episode, I would not have a podcast. I absolutely would have faded, way before even episode 25. And there are some episodes where I'm like crossing my finger. I'm like, I hope that lands. But it's not because I know that it's not because of what I'm talking about. I know what I'm sharing needs to be out, but it's because I usually am like, oh, did I connect that back to business? And what if I didn't hit the mark? Doesn't mean I couldn't get an email from someone like you did sharing an impactful thing that happened to them based on the listening. Those are actually some of the best episodes, right? When you're not as calculated and you are just, in my opinion, I think there are probably some shows that are great strategically, but I just, who I am, I'm always just wanting to, I joke, here's a good example. I joke that I would like to have my own reality show, and that some of my best stuff is off the cuff. Like, I joke that I would want a film crew following me all around. I even had this crazy invention idea that I'd like put some like finagle some invention of like putting something around my waist with like a big kind of like arm lever all the way up my back and over my head, so that then I could like have this like crazy weird selfie stick. Then I would just push record and it would like follow me around all the time. I'm serious about that. But I joke because I want you to be in on my life, because I do believe when I'm going through challenges, like when I had a miscarriage, when I'm going through challenges with my health, when I've gained massive amount of weight because of my hormones, I want, and the joys, I want to be able to share that with my audience. I want to be able to share that, and not to sound repetitive, but it is because there is something in that story, small or big, that is going to make an impact on someone's life. And that is why we do this. I don't know about you, but I don't just do this because I have free time. Like, Jen was also sharing with me some of the stuff she does. I'm like, I've been working with her for over a year and a half. I didn't even know some of the stuff she does. I'm like, when do you sleep, woman? She said never. She said actually when she's podcasting, she's like in a comatose. She's like, she did not say that. But see what we're doing here, that's the flavor that you get when you experience my content and my podcast, and it keeps it fun. And So if I didn't have all those elements that I've shared previously as well, I would have faded. And I have to have some type of outlet to talk about this stuff. And I chose podcasting. And am I sacrificing some growth? Probably. You know, yeah, I am. I've had multiple people tell me that, and I'm thinking about rebranding. I'm thinking about pivoting. But you have to know what you can do in that season that you're in and be okay. Like, you don't need FOMO. Okay. What is meant for you in this life will come to you if you are in action, if you are moving. Miracles favored those who are in movement. And so it was never an option for me through the through birth, even birth, like postpartum, like, I batched my content so I was able to be good for after the birth, but then I wasn't playing for my son to be in the NICU for 3 weeks. Do you think I want to get like, no, sometimes the want to is not their surface level. It's a deep, and I know someone listening to this is going to feel this. It is a deep, it is resonating deep. And that's what helps you and helps me keep pushing live, keep pushing play, keep pushing, yourself to share. It's bigger than podcasting. Absolutely. I would agree with whoever said this is bigger than yourself, right? Like, maybe I just made that up. I don't know. Maybe I just wanted you to agree with me. If you're listening, it's bigger than you, right? It's not just about us. If it was just about us, we would have some type of other modality, content platform that we would be utilizing, and we're not.
Yeah. And it is definitely bigger than us. And I know that, like, for me, it's served as therapy. Like, I have a podcast where I disguised my voice and I talked about all the topics that I didn't want to actually have with other humans because I didn't want to, like, have the fights, but it had to come out. And just doing that made me healthy. Like, I was sick all the time, and I have this, it's still out there. It gets a ton of downloads because it is super controversial. And I changed my voice, I changed the name. And like you're saying, it's like you show up because there's this deeper meaning. Like, I know those episodes were meant for somebody.
Yeah.
Just like you had your son in the NICU and you still showed up because there's this deeper, like, it feels good to you and to those that you're serving.
Yeah. Okay. First of all, I did not know that you haven't. You just got like, is this like Dateline stuff where like black out your face and then like weird voice like that? Oh my gosh, that's cool. That's trippy. Oh my gosh. Sometime I'd actually like to hear your thoughts on true crime podcasts, but that's
Oh, I
another
love them.
another
I'm
discussion
like,
for another time.
right.
That's so
But I think
funny.
it's fun. It's little stories like that. So I want to know, because you are one of the people that I would go to learn story, like to learn how to find that story that aligns with your audience. Because we're not telling you to make up stuff. We're
No.
not telling you to go like off the cusp. Like, you don't have to share things that you're not ready to share. But for somebody who's really stuck right now and like, my brand is falling flat, my business is falling flat, I'm not connecting, I'm so strategic. Like, where does that person start to bring some life back into their podcast and into their business with their story? Like, how's that all work?
Well, great question, Jen. I would say they should listen to my latest podcast episode called What to Do When You Don't Know What to Do. And I will tell you, the first thing not to do is to stop. That's what we think it is. And this is what's great about Jen's show is our natural inclination, because we all have egos, which are meant to self-preserve, right? To protect us from fear, from rejection, from disappointment. That would be our natural inclination, is to stop, because then we don't have to actually deal with it. We don't actually have to like address anything. We can just make an excuse for, oh, my life is hard, or oh, I'm having a hard season, or oh, this is a challenge. But again, remember I said is miracles favor those in movement, which means that you're in action. And so with your story is fluid. Your story is not linear. You're not from A to Z in where you're headed. Now, I believe we're all on a journey and we're never fully arrived until we're on, the other side of Earth. And that's where I believe story does begin. And you don't have to necessarily believe in God to kind of jive with this, what I'm going to share it, but it's who are you? I can give you all the strategy in the world. I can give you the X's and O's, but who are you? If you do not know who you are, and you do not, I'm going to give you permission here. You do not have to have it all figured out because we're always growing, right? We're all on the journey. We're going from glory to glory. It is a continuum. It is not linear. But if you don't know who you are at your core, then you are going to do episodes and business ideas and things on with your content that aren't aligning with who you truly are. And it's going to be noticeable to the people. It's going to be felt. It's going to, the fakeness, not the fake like you're trying to be fake on purpose, but the inauthenticity is going to show through. So my thing that I always teach my clients and I train on, I actually do have also a personal branding freebie that maybe Jen
That's
will.
amazing. That will be in the show notes. Don't you worry.
Good.
You
Okay.
want it. It's 2 parts and it's audio for all of you audio listeners. It is on audio because we are podcast listeners here. We love the audio.
Yes, it is a free exclusive training, 2-part. Jen helped me with the audio, and it is to help you build a personal brand from scratch. And with the here, I'll do the octopus thing real quick too, right? Is why personal branding is so important. And this ties into Jen's question of how do you revive life into your podcast through story, is you are the head of the octopus. Who you are, which we're going to get back to, that absolutely is the head of the octopus. Now, how many tentacles does the octopus have? Or arms or legs or whatever. It has 8. So maybe you're multi-passionate. Maybe, there are other things that you do great. They are all under, you could even use an umbrella analogy. They're all under the umbrella or the head of the octopus, which is your personal brand. And if you cut the head of the octopus off, what do you have? You have some calamari. Okay. That someone's going to eat on their dinner. No, you have all these random legs floating around in the sea, right? Which could go onto someone's plate to make calamari. So it does stem from who you are. So I can give you the strategy, but it goes back to who is your true identity. And in this case, whatever I'm going to say God, you can insert whatever you want, but who does God call you? Right? Who does God say you are? Who cares about what Becky down the street or Josie who has a podcast too, or, your Aunt Martha or, your friend from high school that you haven't talked to in 10 years? Who cares what any of those people think? Who cares about the critics? Maybe you have a really well-known podcast. Who cares about the people who are judging? Are they in the arena with you or are they sitting in the stands? Because most of the times the people who are sitting in the stands don't have the balls to get in the arena and face the bull. And so you yourself aren't going to get in the arena if you don't know who you are. Because if you don't know who you are, you don't know why you wake up in the morning. You don't know why you do it when it's hard, because your feelings will lie to you. Feelings are false. Feelings are not facts. You have to have a greater purpose, a vision for your life. And your vision stems from who you are and your mission. And for me, my mission is to help women unlock their true identity through a healthy lifestyle. And that's more than just physical health. That's mental health, emotional health, spiritual health, financial health. Emmy, but how does that tie back into personal branding and Instagram? Exactly, because all of those things are part of a person. A whole person is a whole person mentally. A whole person is a whole person emotionally, spiritually, finances. When good people have, make good money, they do great things, which is a quote from Chris Harder that I love. You want to change this world? You want to change your world? You're going to need some finances, but you need to know where to put those finances. And again, it all stems from who are you? Who are you created to be? When you got that down, and that's a lot harder than it sounds, but also a lot easier than it is, all you have to do here, this is all you have to do is you just have to ask the question, who do you call me? What do you say I am? Who do you say I am? Whatever version of that question is, and ask that to whoever you want to ask that to. No, your mother, what I'm talking about. Okay, gone. Who do you call me? and listen, pause and listen. For me, I'm a giver of joy and an encourager to many. So I know a successful episode, whether it is SEO or, well, I got Jen to do that. So, or grow, like niche down. I know that it was a successful episode because I did bring someone joy. I encouraged someone. And that's how I can keep going no matter the challenges, because that is why I'm put on this earth, is to give joy, to encourage others. Can you get paid to do it? Yes. That's why you need that freebie, because I actually teach you how to build a personal brand and get paid for it. But at the end of the day, it's going to take some really deep self-reflection, and it's not going to just happen overnight. It can. God is a God of instantlies, but usually it's a journey in a relationship that you have where you get to find out more and more who you are, what you're made of, and that's your message. That's your message. Man, I could keep going. I could keep going. Tiffany, my coach, always is like, we need more preacher Emmy. And I'm like, I know, I've been more strategic. I have been lately. And what has that got me? It's got me frustrated. Like, Jen, oh my gosh, I wrote this quote down. I love this quote. You said, sometimes we have to set aside what we learned, like everything that we've learned. And I've learned a lot. I love to learn. I love to learn. Woo, woo, woo. My parents were both educators. I was an elementary school librarian also for a time being in my previous life. We said, sometimes we have to set aside what we learned and just do, or you said something about, and just something with just life, or I don't know.
Wait a minute.
I want
I
to hear
said
that. Yes, you did. You said,
Wait, that came
sometimes we
out
have
of
to
my
set
mouth?
aside. Yeah, you're going to have to, when you like replay this back, you're going to find it. Sometimes we have to set aside what we learned and just like do life, or just take life, or just experience. I can't remember what you said, but that's exactly true. And that's what I'm currently experiencing right now. And that's a lot of what my content is talking about right now, because it's going to help someone.
So are we bringing back preacher Emmy?
Yeah. She's always been here. She's always here. I have my own limiting beliefs, and I think it's a different episode for a different time, but you're never going to hit it perfectly. If that's what you're striving for, you're always going to be frustrated. And am I at where I want to be at right now in life, in business, in my brand? No, but I don't hate it either. I'm thankful and grateful that I'm not where I used to be. I'm thankful and grateful I'm not in jail, which I've been arrested twice, right? That's a story for another time. Right. So
it's also on your show.
It is, because you got to talk about that stuff. But I was so scared in the past to talk about it because of fear of judgment, because fear of man. Partly I was, as an elementary school librarian, there's some stuff that I couldn't talk about because that would just not be an integrity. But gosh, now that I'm seeing all this stuff on TikTok about what teachers are sharing these days in the classroom, I would have been fine. But anyways, I don't know. I'm just so thankful to have my faith. I'm so thankful to know who I am. I'm so thankful that I have people in my corner like Jen to set the road for success, and success in whatever it means to me. And I know that you provide that for all your clients, because I know a lot of your clients. I send you a lot of referrals, and they would say, I'm sure the same thing about that with you.
Yeah. And I want to say, like, the who am I question, that was a game changer. That was like the moment I was on the floor in Costa Rica, and somebody asked, but like that who am I question it's critical. And it is, if you don't know that, everything is going to be hard in your business. Everything's going to be hard in setting up a life that you're actually dreaming of. So I think that that's so important. In that freebie that you're talking about, definitely go grab that, because that who am I question is a huge part of your personal brand. And I think that, again, just like you said, we went so far into strategy sometimes that it's like, oh, sucks. I don't want to do this anymore. If I have to talk about one more podcast strategy, I'm going to lose my ever loving mind. Like,
That's all about Instagram. But then on the other side, right, is you can't just do mindset stuff 24/7 either, right? Like there's a pendulum, and it is hard finding the sweet spot. And some seasons I do not find the sweet spot. And sometimes I do. And when I do, you can tell. I feel it. I can tell. And that's what sharing our stories and sharing our expertise as well and strategy is going to help you do more and more of, right? We're just trying to hit the mark more times than we're not. But hello, Babe Ruth, he was like the number one guy in strikeouts, right? But he also was the home run king. So sometimes you're going to swing and miss. But you know what he did? He kept getting back up to the plate. So this is your call. I call everyone sister, but if you're a guy, hey, nice to meet you. But this is your call, sister, to step up to the plate. Are you going to continue to count yourself out, or are you going to respond and step up no matter what the outcome is? No matter what the outcome is, because someone needs your podcast, someone needs to know what you have to say, someone needs your message, and someone absolutely needs to hear your story. And I love, love, love what I do because I do get to help bring that out of people who don't think, and business owners specifically, who don't think they have a story to tell or don't think the things that they have experienced in life are noteworthy or don't think that they should share X, Y, and Z on Instagram because like, who's going to like care about that? Well, I'm going to help you realize that those are the things that are what are called connection points. And when you create connection, you create conversation, and conversations equals cash. And at the end of the day, I'm here to help people make some money, especially that life changing, altering money type of money. Are you here for it? I'm here for it.
I'm here for it. And that's one of the things, like you've heard it in my podcast, because I always call out the hey Emmy, that she says connections to conversations to cash, because that phrase I've heard so many times that it's like embedded into my soul. So every time I say it, listeners, you're finally talking to the person that I keep calling out in my episodes, because this is the person that has ingrained it into my brain.
Hey, you listen to my
Emmy.
podcast.
Welcome, Emmy.
Yes, conversations equals cash. That's originally where the phrase started. And I kept thinking, okay, well, how do we get to these conversations? Because that's where you find out people's story, is when you have we actually stop and pause. I think a lot of the world's problems right now, and maybe it's just America, would be solved if people would stop and listen to each other's story, whether you agree with them or not. That's a form of love. Listening is a form of love. Whether I agree with your decisions or not, I am going to love you, which means I'm going to listen to you. Granted, it's in a safe environment, we have some boundaries set up. But I was like, how do we get into these conversations where I can hear people's story? Well, it starts with a connection. And if you are being selfish, if I could be so bold, if you are being selfish because you are holding back something that you don't think is important or non sequitur, you're actually doing your listener, your audience, a disservice. And you are not inviting them into connection. And again, you may get some results at the bottom line, but at the end of the day, you are not going to get that cash money that you want you want in your business, you want with your podcast, you want so that you can live the life like you said it, that you're dreaming of. And so that phrase has evolved, makes it a little longer, so not as like punchy, but connections equals conversations, which equals cash. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I was so grateful to hear that. And again, it's part of what I think a lot of people need to understand is like, we were having this conversation before, is like social media, that connection point is 30 to 60 seconds, maybe 90. I don't fully know because I don't hang out there like how long you get anymore. Let's be real. Not a person on over there, but podcasting, this is a deep connection. This,
Mm-hmm.
I'm having a deep connection with you. The listener is part of this conversation. That's a connection point that lasts. Like, just, I don't know. Like, we need to sometimes get out of like how many listens we have and like think about like that one story, like that one person reached out and was like, this changed my life. Would that make you want to keep going? Like, if
So
you can, if you
here's the pro tip on that. And my business coach told me this from the beginning before I launched my podcast. She said, do not look at your stats. Do not look at your stats, because if you look at your stats, you're probably going to get in your head and you're probably going to not want to do it. And did I fully listen? No, because I mean, right. When someone tells me, to do, I still am a little stubborn, you know, I still have a little bit orneriness in me, even though I'm pushing 40. And so I looked some, but I had a healthy viewpoint of it. And now it's just on occasion, but it definitely was not every day. It definitely was not every episode. So it's the same with weight loss. Sometimes you should track, and that is one way to track your weight loss. It's actually better to take pictures and measurements, but you shouldn't be weighing yourself every day, because there's going to be ups and downs. There's going to be a C curve. There's some days you're going to, maybe you need to go poop more. Okay. Or you have some water weight hanging on, or you're bloated. And some days you're like feeling awesome and skinny mini or whatever. It's the same with your podcast. It's the same with your life. We're never a linear. We're never just flatline. That would be so boring. We'd be all on the Truman Show and, you know, like Leave It to Beaver and Pleasantville if that was the case. And that's not what is happening. It's just not the thing. And so, yeah, I love this. I love this conversation. This is beautiful.
Yeah, thank you so much for it. So I want to know, what is your ingredient or ingredients that you would like to add to the cure for pod fade?
Oh, Lord. I mean, I am not a good cook, so I don't know. If we're talking about ingredients, I don't know if I'm the one to talk to, but I get what you're saying. Gosh, there really are so many factors, but to stay in line with what we talked about today, it absolutely 100% without a doubt is being yourself. And I know that's a messy thing. I know that is not, it can change. But at your core, who are you? Really, I do encourage you to take some time, get quiet, get a journal, and just pause and ask that question and listen. Be okay with the stillness. Be okay with the quiet. Be okay with being uncomfortable if you truly want to get a different result. If you truly want to cure the fade for your pod, it's going to require you to do something different. And I think this is what people aren't really talking about, because it's not the X's and O's. That's easy to teach on. That's easy to train on. That's easy to sell you online. This is not. And so I would just encourage you, when you do that, you are going to be more and more yourself. There's freedom in that. There's so much freedom. I know Jen can agree with that based off of some of her story and things that she's experienced when she got quiet. And it is the coolest thing, because you know what? You don't care, but it's not like you don't care with a chip on your shoulder what other people think. You don't care because you're walking in your true identity and you're keeping the blinders on. You know what you came to do and you're doing it, girlfriend. And it is a beautiful thing. People will respond to it. It's an energetic exchange that people will definitely vibe with, and it will help you and it will help your podcast. And then in turn, it's going to help even more people, which is the goal. So be yourself. Be yourself. Be cool. Be weird. Be nerdy. Be dorky. Be fun. Be silly. Be awkward. Be a fashionista. Be whatever. Like whoever you are, you know, from your personality to your core, just be that. And people will celebrate that, because they'll see the authentic self come through in a way like never before. It's like a glow. It's like the real glow up. So you're going to cure your pod and you're going to glow up all in one.
Ooh. I'm like, yes, please. We all could use a little glow up and a little bit more lean into, like, okay, what can we let go of? What can we lean into? How can we connect?
Yeah, get rid of those burdens. Life is hard enough. Like, don't make it harder on yourself. You know, get rid of the burdens. You're carrying too many backpacks, and most of the backpacks that you're carrying are other people's crap and other people's stuff. And you just got to drop those off at school and leave them there.
Yes. Yes, yes, yes. So we've mentioned that you have the podcast. So you have the Hey Hey Emmy show. You can also be found on Instagram at the Hey Hey Emmy. And we'll definitely get the freebie in there for that 2-part audio series to help you find your octopus.
Yeah.
And you all know what we're talking about now at this point. When I say octopus, is like really embodying all those pieces of your story.
Yeah. So what I would say is if you are utilizing Instagram as part of your strategy to grow your podcast, because it is a tool, it is not the end all be all. I love Instagram and I love social media, but those are all parts of the puzzle to help with the end goal. Do I think you need it? Yeah, because I'm biased. I think at some level it does. For me at least, my podcast. If someone finds me through my podcast, they're going to look for another connection point. They're going to look for another credible. See that I'm credible in another source. They're going to go to Instagram. When people find me on Instagram, usually then they end up going to the podcast, and then somewhere in between, I get clients and customers. But so that's why I think they work well off of each other. And if you're a business owner and you're listening and you have a podcast and you know that you need someone to look, you need eyeballs on your stuff. You need someone, yes, to give you that strategy. I am opening my books up very shortly, and probably like by the time this comes out, for my 60-minute strategy sessions. And what we do in that 60 minutes will blow your mind. Now, if you are curious of what those 60-minute strategy sessions involve, well, you get to be the driver, and then I'm the co-creator with you. But I have tons of examples over on my Instagram at the Hey Emmy. I have a highlight, and it says 60-minute strategy sessions where I have business owner after business owner after business owner, many of them with their own podcast that I have done 60-minute strategy sessions with, who you can see different examples of what we work on. Maybe it's optimizing your bio and your whole profile, so auditing that, so you have a place where when people land, they know who you are, what you do, and how you can help them, and you're funneling them into the next step and next part of the journey as a customer and a potential client. So I would head over to Instagram and you can see, or you can also just DM me on Instagram and we can have a conversation. You can see if it's a good fit for you. But I'm telling you, those 60-minute strategy sessions, we can do more in those 60 minutes than a lot of you. I just know this because I know the people I've worked with. There are people who buy courses, and I love courses. I have courses. Jen has courses. I love courses. But there's even courses that I bought and I've never even completed. Okay, so if that's you, but you actually want to move the needle down, like move the ball down the court, you want to do one of these 6-minute strategy sessions. So that would be the other place, Jen, that I would have people go. And those are for the people who are really serious about their business and serious about getting action, so that the rest of 2023 is not like the beginning of 2022 where you're just like, wah, 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 wah. Okay, let's finish strong.
Right. I can't believe it's almost like halfway over. I'm like, wow, where did this time go? But yeah, so the strategy sessions, you also have, I think, a couple of them on your show. So if people want to kind of like get a behind the scenes, like there's also some episodes where people can see how, like, they can go to Instagram and they can go to your show to make sure that they like find the right person. But seriously,
Yeah.
I've heard them and I'm like, my jaw drops. That's like my jaw drop noise. The silence was a jaw drop, just so you know.
I got to
But
see it.
yeah,
I visually got to see it because of the video. That's so funny.
but I
So,
really appreciate what you're bringing to the world and like this personal branding. And I love seeing the pivot from just being Instagram to like really like owning this new story. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about podcasting is as you go, it's a platform where you can really just pivot and it's okay. It's not quite as confusing as if you pivot somewhere else. Like, oh, all of a sudden Jen's doing this and this. Like I've pivoted so many times on my podcast and people are like, oh, it just kind of flew. It was like fluid. It went together.
yeah. Yeah. And you'll have the people that bow out that were there for originally for something different. And that's okay, because you're always finding your people the more you find yourself. Ooh, that's a good one. You're always finding your people the more you find yourself. And I never stopped my show with Jen's guidance, no matter the challenges, even if it was going from 2 episodes a week to 1, or utilizing different strategies that she's had of like using replays or having guests. We didn't do this, but we talked about this, having other people kind of guest host the show. There's so many different things that you can do to keep your podcast going so that your message continues to get out there while you figure it out. And it's okay it's okay if you're still figuring it out. Just call the elephant out of the room. Be on it. Be a person. Don't be a robot. Be a person. And Jen, I thank you for allowing me to do that with your help.
And I thank you for allowing me to like hold this space and to be able to say like, okay, let's try this, and being open to like knowing how powerful this is. Because I mean, it's a slow build, but I truly believe that podcast listeners are a whole different, I'm gonna call them a whole different breed of
Yeah.
clients.
Yeah. We love you. We love you. All you listening, we love you.
Well, thank you so much again for sharing all your wisdom. You know, the show notes are going to be, actually, we're going to call them the show descriptions, because I got schooled on that the other day. I'm like, it's not technically show notes, it says show description. And I'm like, all right, I got called out. So, whatever you want to call it, those things below your podcast episode. There will be so many good links. Just swipe up, because Emmy is going to get you set up in really leaning in, because yes, this does go with the cure for pod fade, because owning your authentic self is what's going to keep you motivated to keep going.
Yeah. So good. You're awesome, Jen. Hire this girl. Okay, people.